Mike, we've run across a lot of different definitions of feminine energy. Feminine energy is that which, down to the third dimension, it's a woman's intuition. Feminine energy may relate to a variety of different things. And, when you hear feminine energy, what comes to mind?
Well, I think of it more as the divine feminine and the divine masculine. What does it mean to be, it's like motherhood and nurturing and that sort of thing, and the feminine and the divine masculine would be in protection and those sort of things.
That's interesting. Well, we have someone that knows a great deal about feminine energy on our Forum of Reality, Stephanie Patel. Stephanie Patel has been working in the spiritual realm, spiritual field for over 40 years. She's a retired attorney, so she's had a lot of work with a lot of unique
people with different perspectives and influences.
Yes. So we want to welcome you, Stephanie, back to our show.
Well, thank you.
And for the listening audience, you want to just tell a few paragraphs about who you are and what you do with in working with other individuals?
Sure. Well, I actually spent most of my life as a working attorney and raising children, and most of it was as a single parent. So you might say that I guess I should probably just explain a little bit. I've been, ever since I had a very, very profound experience when I was 28 years old, and it kind of knocked me for a loop, turned my world upside down. I have been very cognizant, you might say, of the spiritual realm. But it wasn't until I retired that I really had the opportunity to focus upon it. And not knowing where I was going or what was going to happen. And so it's really only been about the last 3 years that I've had very extraordinary experiences and worked with a lot of people directly based on my connections, I would say, with what I call the spiritual realm. To me, it's very natural. We think of ourselves as humans, somehow separate from the divine, and I don't see it that way. We are the interface between the human and the divine. We as humans really we're kind of at the fulcrum point on a lot of dichotomies. And so right now I work with people. I like to work with people a lot of people have a lot of blockages, emotional blockages. And so based on my training, because I was trained, and I call it trained by what I call the OS, the other side, or could stand for the operating system, if you like. They worked with me and demonstrated and showed me and took me through my paces to understand how to clear out some of this blocked emotional energy. I also facilitate communications for people. I can communicate with those family and friends who are on the other side and bring those through for individuals.
So in your work with individuals, do you find that there's a more, you do a lot of work with both men and women, or do you do work with groups?
Well, both. And I find that most of the people that I work with are women for some reason. Women overall tend, not for each, it's not consistent, but overall, women tend to be more in touch with the emotional side and men more with the logical side. Mm-hmm. And it's now, but it's not every case. Found some men that are very in touch with their emotional sides. But it's a time when, in order to balance ourselves out, if we tend to be on the emotional side, to come into the logical side. And if we tend to be on the logical side, to begin to work more with the emotional side so that we can get that balance.
Oh, that makes sense. I know that you also believe that you have been on Earth in a number of different incarnations. Has the last incarnation that you remember or you put yourself in touch with the Akashic records, was it male or female?
Female.
Female.
Yeah, most of my lives that I remember are female. I have a couple that were male, but they weren't. The ones that I remember were not real.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to say significant, but
I understand. I understand. And so, what tends to draw you towards when you come back on Earth to be female?
Well, I think, boy, Patrick, you've really asked a loaded question, because it really goes to the very heart of matters. Is there, or are we playing out a certain identity of feminine or masculine energy? And so I feel like my own perspective is that I'm very much on the feminine side. I just am.
Okay.
And so the lifetimes, mostly I'm drawn to that. If I'm in the masculine, it is to balance it out, to understand it better. That's all I can say. I don't really know what.
Okay. All right. Well,
Would your question be, do you do what you feel or what you think you should be? You know, are you who you are, or do you play out who other people think, or what you think other people want you to be? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I hear your question. And it's so hard for me to explain, because if I can talk about this just a minute, because
Sure.
There's so many levels of understanding. You can go all the way back to source energy, which is love and is undifferentiated. And then you
Right.
have different levels. It's like the level of being on the earth and living in the earth world, and then going into outer space, and things change. And that's the way it is in the spiritual realm too, or even in our level of understanding. And so people talk a lot about, making contracts and deciding what they're going to be in a lifetime. That's a certain level of understanding where there's still a very ego-oriented understanding. Beyond that, beyond the ego level of understanding, there is just, as I say, or we say, thought and feeling. And you have a thought, and that creates a feeling, and from the feeling comes a thought, and then it goes on and on and on and on. It's the eternal experience that keeps unfolding in ways that we never could have expected. So I guess what I would say is that for each lifetime or each experience, you're drawn to what you need to fulfill
that makes sense.
What is already there. And for example, I've talked before about how I have a twin soul, you might say it's called. And so let me talk a little bit about my understanding. This is what I've been told.
And this is twin flames, so you're saying?
Well, sort of, except this is what I've been told. So this is unique to me. To my understanding.
Okay.
Is that we all have, we are in pods of 8.
Okay.
There are 8, and they used the term, or at least my twin used a term for me, of twin flames. There are 8 twin flames in a pod. Each of those has a twin soul. So really, we're talking about 16 halves or whole souls in a pod. So each of them has a feminine and a masculine energy. Now they could change, and they could vary for whatever reason. You can think of it like a circle. That this soul is a circle, and on this point is the masculine energy. On this side is the feminine energy. They can move, with each other, and so we are always the polarities of each other as well as resonate with each other. And you can think of the particles in quantum mechanics. That are always somehow aligned, no matter where they are. So recently, since I have a lot of past life recall, and when I look at my past lives, there's an arc, and there's a theme that runs through them all. It's like sometimes we can look back, and I work with people this way, to find those incidents in their life that are significant and that control what they do and who they are. If you can go back and unravel them, you will free yourself up. You don't even realize half the time that your life is controlled by these incidents, but you will remember them. I worked with somebody the other day who had an incident when he was 7, and when we went back there, it was so emotional for him, and he knew about it. And so going back there and reworking it and releasing the energy then opens you up. It's controlling your life when you remember those incidents. So in working with the other side of my soul, which is masculine, the male, which I call his name is Steve and mine is Steph, so go figure. But we had a very significant lifetime thousands of years ago, and I talked about it in the last session. And it resulted in, we just resolved it. He resolved it after all these thousands of years. And I'll just briefly tell you, it had to do with him not appreciating what he had when he had it. So he went through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime as if he could not get off that round of never appreciating what he had when he had it until it was gone. And finally, pulling the string over, and this was causing me a lot of stress. And finally, coming to the realization, going back to that lifetime, and in that lifetime, I had walked away from him. I talked about the Island King lifetime, and because I wasn't happy. And he said, I broke his heart because that I left him in that lifetime. However, it took him all this time to realize and to get to the other side of it, that he didn't appreciate what he had when he had it. And to come back there, and that was amazing to me. It was like this huge release. That to realize that even back thousands of years ago in time, which of course doesn't exist, it's a memory, that was always between us, that you didn't appreciate me while I was there. And I walked away one day, and then you were heartbroken. So we go back and we go around the tree and we see the other sides of things, and it releases all this energy, and all of a sudden it's just amazing.
You're just free.
Yeah, you're free of that old pattern that follows you even lifetime through lifetime.
And so one of the things that you do in your healing process and working with one-on-one and on groups is helping to release the negative energies of past lives. Can I say that?
Right. And we don't refer to it as negative energy. To us, There is, ultimately one of the ideas that we would interject. And when I say we, I talk about me and my spirit team, because we're always in connection, is that we would interject into the human experiences to put the bite back in the apple, to lose the knowledge of good and evil. And so people think of negative as bad and positive as good. They're just two poles on a magnet. They're neither good nor bad. And so what I do is I work with people to accept their emotions, because when they're in resistance, and most people I work with are in huge resistance to sadness, anger, frustration, all these emotions. And so we sit in them. And the way I work is, for example, if you, Patrick, had a problem with, you felt really bad because you felt you were short or something. And somebody said, every time someone said, you're short, you would just get, I would tell you that.
Yeah, Mike tells me I'm short all the time. I'm short of a full deck, something like that. Yeah.
Good. Then we got a good thing going here. I tell you, Patrick, you are short.
Okay, great.
And then I would let you feel the emotions, and I'd be there with you, and I'd be talking you through it. and we would be looking at that emotion, whether it was anger, frustration, sadness, and usually it would take you back to an incident in your childhood where something came up, and it might even be a hugely emotional one. And once you feel those emotions, once you are able to share them with another human being, sharing is really important. Once you share that with another human being, the energy goes out of it. And
like
I could say to you, and then I would say to you, Patrick, you're short, and you would just go, oh, you'd be just in blitz, because you've released the energy associated.
I see.
Yeah, it's like the initial injury that, gets the scab scratched off every once in a while.
Right. And these are, we call it triggers. If somebody says something to you and you're always looking for your reaction. If somebody says something to you and you feel an emotional reaction, that's a trigger. And that's where you want to look. And most people don't. Most people want to resist, and they want to go, how dare you say that to me? In fact, I spent a period of time just asking people to insult me so I could find my triggers. Thank you for insulting me. I don't really see it as an insult. I see it as an opportunity to clear out that energy. And then once you've cleared it out, people can say anything they want to you, and you're just listening. You're not reacting.
Do you find that most individuals, you have to do a lot of work? For instance, if you have men tend to compartmentalize. I don't mean to be speaking for everyone. I'm just repeating some things that I've heard and learned. But men tend to compartmentalize.
Yeah, my wife says that about me, that, I can have this experience and maybe have a bad time with it or whatever, but I'll put it in a box, put it away, and I can be okay about everything else, and that little box doesn't affect the rest of the boxes.
Yeah, we
right.
compartmentalize.
But it's still there and is affecting you subconsciously. And here's the other thing is, okay, so a lot of what I've been learning has to do, and this has been a big theme in my life because of encountering it at different places, is mental illness, what we call mental illness. And to me, to separate mental illness from physical illness is ridiculous.
Understand?
Everything is physical illness. It doesn't matter what your symptoms are. Because your physical body is your monitor. It is your instrument in this world. It is what you use to feel and experience. It's like you've been put into this suit in order that you can feel throughout. And when you feel something, this is important. People say, well, I feel anger. And I'll say, well, where do you feel it? How do you know you feel anger? And a lot of people are so blocked that they can't get into their own bodies and understand, how would you know you're angry unless you feel something? So where are you feeling it? So getting into it and saying, my shoulders are stiff, my heart hurts, my stomach, I feel like I'm going to vomit. These are your feelings. The I am angry is a thought. And there's a big difference. And so for people to learn that is very crucial. And I also want to say that I have studied things like schizophrenia and recently bipolar. And I have a very different understanding of them than the medical profession. And I will say that the understanding I have and the instances I've worked with it have worked. And because people don't understand what's going on. And so they throw medication at it. They frighten people. They make them feel flawed.
They label them. But you feel flawed. And the bottom line in all of this work, the bottom line is that somewhere in your life, and for most people, it's in this lifetime. Now, I've cleared out a lot of crap in my lifetime, so I can go into past lifetimes. But for most people, it's in this lifetime, just finding the keys in this lifetime. Everybody comes into this world believing that they are love. Everybody comes into this world determined to hold on to that, to be. And so as we say it, you are love. You come into this world for one purpose, to experience love and to express love.
We say that our best definition of love is seeing and being seen, hearing and being heard. So that out of love had to divide itself in order to create differentiation. So it created the lover and the beloved, and they are each to each other. So when everything has a counterpart, the bee and the flower, the male and the female, all these others up and down, there's a counterpart to everything. And when we block off people, when we refuse to see them, when we say, you must be a certain way in order for me to love you, we create the initial wound, the judgment of good and bad. And so everybody comes in here, and even as a little baby, it will usually happen. People will, mom will get mad at the little baby or the boy for some reason, and he'll say, she doesn't love me. Inside him, I have to be a certain way in order for her to love me. And that becomes an initial wound. So everybody wants to know they're loved just for being who they are, which they are. And everybody wants to know they're significant, that they matter in the world. And these are the two wounds that underlie everything I've ever seen. Every emotional distress is, I have to be a certain way to be loved. I'm not lovable the way I am, and I don't matter to the universe. I'm dispensable.
That's, in the third dimension, we are placed in a unique situation where bad stuff will happen, regardless of who you are. You could have multi-million dollars. You are born into a family that has everything, and you still have bad stuff that happens to you. And I had one individual comment and say, well, it's the character behind how you resolve that. And that got me to thinking, similar to what you're saying, is you're there as a facilitator helping those individuals get back into character to be able to resolve some of the issues that bad stuff had happened to them. Am I not correct?
Well, yes, except that we would not use the word bad because we'd throw that out.
Well, yeah.
Get rid of that bad stuff.
I know. Bad,
you have
negative.
Challenges happen in your life.
Yeah.
Because life this is what it's about. If we didn't have challenges, we would be bored out of our mind.
Right. That is correct.
And so people, I don't want to go sit on a cloud with a harp for the rest of eternity. If I don't have challenges, if I don't have something to engage my interest. So what happens in our understanding is depression. Depression is standing still in your path. It's not moving, and it is because you feel insignificant, incapable, inadequate. If the level of challenge is here and you feel your ability to meet it is here, you're going to have depression. If your challenge is here and your ability to meet it is way above it, you're going to have boredom. And so when some so-called bad things happen to people, that is their opportunity. This is such a neat way to look at it. Everything that happens to you is your opportunity to experience emotion, and that's why you came here, energy and motion. So if something happens to you and it makes you angry, you go, yippee, I get to experience anger. This is what I came for. Where am I feeling it? And it can't stay. Once you experience it, the emotion must go. Because it's in motion, it's energy in motion, it wants to be released. When you put it in that box, you're holding on to it and you're preventing it from moving. And so when you experience it, then you will go on to the next step on your path. And it doesn't matter whether it's depression, frustration. I do it all day long. Right now I'm experiencing frustration, or I'm experiencing anger.
We'll try to ask better questions, okay?
What?
We'll try to ask better questions so we won't frustrate you.
Oh, I love frustration. Like I said, it's all the same. Once you realize it's all the same, it's just something happening in your body, just pay attention to it. Then you, as I say, it's like if there's emotions are like the waves in the ocean. If you can ride them and accept all of the waves without labeling them as good or bad, you're like on your surfboard riding the waves. If you can't do that, if you're resisting them, you're going to drown
Sure.
in them.
Yeah. That's a good explanation.
So just throwing out that good and bad definition, which were so, it started out with the baby, good and bad is love or not loved.
Sure.
And then we let those experiences define us.
Absolutely.
I'm the person that got messed up or screwed over or
Yes. I'm the person that got raped, I get to be the victim forever and blame everybody. I'm the
Right.
person that got, that mom hated, I'm the person that dad whipped all the time. He loved my sister, but I'm the one that bad one. Yeah.
So,
And instead of saying, God, I'm the one dad whipped all the time and he loved my sister, that means I got to experience frustration, anger, stuff she didn't. Now look at me. I've got all this experience in my pocket that she doesn't have. And from ever after, I can take that experience. When I see somebody whipping somebody, I know what it feels like. Look at me. I've grown.
Stephanie, we're winding down, but that might be a good topic next time we talk, in the fact that, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, many times we put ourselves in the same situation and experience the same things.
Yep.
And in your work with individuals that have had numbers of lifetimes of difficulties, maybe we can explore more in detail how you help those individuals.
Sure.
We're talking with Stephanie Patel. Stephanie, do you have in this last minute, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share to the listening and viewing audience?
Well, yeah, I do actually. And the words of wisdom I want to share are the ones that I got from early in my sessions. I asked if I could, when I started connecting with the OS, and I always went through my friend Steve, I asked if I could connect with Alan Watts. And we had a little interesting chat. And I asked him, before I left, I was, wait, because we never really got into it. Do you have any words of wisdom for me? And he said, I can't give you wisdom, Stephanie. You have to create it for yourself. And so those are the words of wisdom I would give to everyone. It's your ride.
Fantastic. Hey, we're talking with Stephanie Patel. You can find her at stephaniepatel.com. Take a look down below on our description. And she is there to assist on a one-to-one basis or in a group.
Yes.
And she has a number of different things that I think you'll find well done on her email page, webpage. Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's nice talking to you.
Good
You
talking
too.
with you.
And thank you, audience, for watching, and we'll see you next time.